To me, spiritual growth is synonymous with freedom. What spiritual growth is, or self-growth, you're freeing yourself from the limitations of your own ego, or external freedom.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Good Trip Podcast, featuring one of my closest friends on planet Earth in this dimension, JP Sears, comedian, freedom fighter, video maker, content creator, people lover, goat owner. Technically, he owns some goats and some chickens, and just all around wonderful person with a very distinct point of view toward society, toward the world, toward life, and we dive into that and so much more. But first, show dates. I'm on tour this whole year. My comedy special is coming out soon, and I got stops in Alabama, Sacramento, San Francisco, Escondido, San Diego, Florida. I'm all over Florida. Chicago at some point. It's not booked yet, but it will be soon. Austin, Texas. Check out all the tour dates with ticket links at brentpella.com, and make sure you sign up for my newsletter on that site so you can get updates on my big projects and tours that are coming up soon. Now, JP and I sat down in his barn out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, with the goats right outside, and had an awesome discussion that dove deep into his philosophies regarding the freedom of choice and freedom of consciousness. My boy JP is freedom-based. He is a freedom fighter. He champions people's freedom as individual human beings on planet Earth, which we all are in this finite amount of time that we have to be alive. And we should be celebrating our freedoms and exercising our freedoms. And one of those freedoms is your freedom of consciousness and your freedom to alter your state of consciousness however you would like, as long as it does not put other people in harm's way, right? And so we dove in deep on that topic and so much more. I'm super excited for this conversation, and I'm stoked to share it with y'all. But first, I want to have a quick little vibe check with y'all. Are you happy? Are you healthy? I hope you're both, because for me, those two things go hand in hand, which is why I'm super stoked to share with y'all two of my favorite products that are official sponsors of this podcast, Legit Gold Shilajit and Hemp Lucid CBD. Now, if your first question is, what is Shilajit? Is that a real thing, or is that a superpower you get when you drink too much radioactive waste? It's not a superpower, but it is a superfood. It's actually a mineral-rich resin that gets sourced over 16,000 feet above sea level by Sherpas in the Himalayan mountains. And Legit Gold gets all that magic and bottles it up for you and to optimize your health. Shilajit has been researched and studied for its positive effects on mental clarity, focus. It can enhance cognitive function, boost testosterone in men, and so much more. Legit Gold is a family-owned and operated business located in the United States of America, and they get their Shilajit lab tested at a third-party accredited lab for purity and quality. It is heavy metal free and full of vibes. That is not a scientific statement, but like, you get it. The resin is super easy to dissolve in your morning coffee or tea, or the pre-dissolved solution in water, just one dropper goes a super long way. Use promo code Brent for a discount. That's legitgold.com, L-A-J-I-T gold.com. Use promo code Brent for a discount. And after you wake up in the morning and have a great day, you might want to relieve that stress a little bit later at night, which is why I always go for Hemp Lucid CBD products. These guys rock. They make a whole bunch of different products. They have a water-soluble version, which is created using nanotechnology, advanced nanotechnology. Shout out to Iron Man, who has absolutely nothing to do with this at all. But when they use advanced nanotechnology to break down the particles of CBD, it creates more bioavailable CBD that your body can absorb faster and use quicker. They also have MCT oil and 3 different versions of their mushroom gummies. One to help you ease into sleep, one to aid focus, and one just to relieve a little bit of stress. I love Hemp Lucid CBD because they are one of the only products on the market that use 100% USDA certified organic ingredients. It's a proprietary strain, so don't ask them for the recipe, but you can learn more about what Hemp Lucid has to offer for you and your overall health at hemplucid.com. Use promo code PELLA for a discount. And without further ado, please enjoy this week's trip with my boy, JP Sears. Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Welcome. How are you? You look vascular.
Thank you. My mother was vascular as well. Overall, I'm good.
Great.
Certainly have had stresses, yet welcome to humanity.
You need stress to grow. Would you agree?
I would. Yeah, I think that's a fact of life. if you want the muscle to grow, get stronger, got to stress it. Intellect, got to stress it. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we as people in the overall trajectory of our lives, growing who we are, or at least growing our self-awareness of who we are. Apparently we need stress.
So there are physical stresses that we give to ourselves. The most obvious ones are sauna, cold plunge, exercise. Do you have any practices in your life that kind of stress you mentally in a good way? Not to the point where you're banging your head against the wall, freaking out about something, but like what mentally stresses you that you think in the long run helps you grow mentally and expand the way that you think about different things?
Yeah, so two things come to my mind that are probably my primary ways of getting mental stress, so mental exercise to hopefully grow stronger from it. One would be my work. So it's like, hey, there's this topic about whatever. How do I make a comedy video about it or a stand-up bit? So that task of taking the raw materials of here's an idea and then sculpting it into whatever it becomes, that's a mental task. And I think it evokes other things as well. But then the other one that's probably more challenging for me, but probably more potent and important, I would say it's having, this might sound too cliche or too basic, but it's having tough conversations that need to be had in a respectful, loving way. Yeah. I think a tough conversation where you're a mean jerk, disrespectful, I don't think you grow from that. So it's, the meaningful conversations, tough conversations, while staying in a field of connection and respect. I think those really help us grow.
That's one of the most challenging things, I think, for people to do, is to have conversations like that.
Yeah.
Especially today when seemingly a majority of conversations happen in 140 characters or less.
Right.
Yeah,
and I think one of the challenges about those conversations is you have no control over the other person, how they perceive you, how they hear you, how they understand you, how they misunderstand you, what they think of you. So I think I would suspect for me and maybe other people, why those can be challenging is there's like a sense of my self-image might die here. Not who we are, but like who we think we are, who we think the other person thinks we are. That might be
challenged. Yeah. Questioned.
It might be proved to be false. Like it could quote unquote die. So like I think we identify with our ideas and our sense of self, and a hard conversation, like who we think we are, like we're in a way kind of scared to death.
Yeah. Embracing the fact that your self-image can change is actually really freeing, I think. I mean, I've built up over the years a self-image of myself that's been shattered time and again, which is great. I love that. I mean, especially being in the performance world, where we kind of have this sense of who we are on stage or on camera. But having the being okay with having that called into question can open up a lot of new pathways for growth, I think.
Yeah, and inflict tremendous torture if you try to resist that.
Right,
if you try to hang on to who you think you are, which it's kind of like you mentioned, letting your self-image change, that's freedom. Trying to hold on to who you think you are, that's, man, you're enslaved to something that's not even real, and good luck having happiness with that. I'm curious, how do you either condition your mind or just frame it mentally so that you can be someone who embraces the change of your self-image embraces the change of your beliefs rather than someone who's like phobic.
Yeah. For me personally, and this is like constant work, and it will be until I take my last breath. I've in recent years especially, I've started reminding myself that change will never stop happening. Who I am today and my beliefs today will continue to evolve. And there's something exciting about that, because if I am who I am right now forever, then there's no real excitement in that. Like there's no excitement in the prospects of what is to come, because I know what's to come. So if I'm set as who I am now, and I don't want to call it into question at all, and I have my ultimatums about everything in life, then I'm leaving no room for growth. And that's boring as shit. Yeah. To me, that's boring. And I get some people, they'll plant their flag on a hill and dig their feet in, and that's who they are forever, whether it's about a political topic or a relationship aspect, or how they treat people, or the trust that they give people, or their diet or health opinions, whatever. But if you can grant yourself the ability to be open to change in any of those aspects, you can still believe your beliefs now, but if you just leave a sliver open, if you just leave the door ajar on all those topics, then you call in the opportunity for change and growth into somebody that you might end up liking more than the person you like now that you are. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm ranting.
No, it makes sense. And you said you can still believe the beliefs you have now. And I think there's a lot of magic in how you phrase that. If you have your beliefs, you're probably self-identified with them. Mm-hmm. You probably, at some level, feel as though that's who you are. Therefore, don't let them change, because if it changes, then we go through a sense of like, I'm dying. I have to self-preserve, fight growth, fight change. But when you take a step back into the observer role, now you can have a relationship with your beliefs because you're not them. So now you can believe your beliefs, which means you're not your beliefs. So if you believe your beliefs, great. We all need beliefs. But then you can also question your beliefs. Yeah. So I loved how you phrased that.
Yeah, and it's allowing yourself the ability to evolve. And that's something that I've been like consciously practicing specifically for the past couple of years, is allowing myself the ability to evolve in a relationship, in a friendship, with beliefs and people that I listen to or really relate to in the political sphere, the entertainment world. And it's more fun. It's more fun that way, because then I get to look forward to changing a little bit,
Yeah, and I think one of the ingredients of fun, we have to allow space for a level of discomfort and fear. Obviously, if the fear is a 10 out of 10, we're not having fun. But like, we've jumped off a bridge together.
Yeah.
I'm curious, when we did that 0 to 10, where was the fear for you?
10, 11. Yeah.
So that
I don't jump off of bridges.
For me, like that bridge, it's like a 5 out of 10, which in my personal equation, cool. That's fun. And like, if a fear is like a 2, like, cool, we're still having fun with that. But if there's no sense of adventure, because there's no like riskiness, the fun factor can be low. Therefore, I think letting our self-growth be fun also means we have to embrace fear. We have to let ourselves think about things and do things that are scary to us. Otherwise, we're just retreating into the coffin of our comfort zone. And I don't think anything really grows there.
Yeah. So we've toured together quite a bit, and you do a Q&A session after the shows. And a question that's came up a couple of times is regarding your pivot into more political content and political satire in 2020, which is when we both kind of turned into doing a lot more political stuff. Do you see that as a risk that you took? Did you see it as a risk at the time, or was it more like just a calling? How do you define that moment as far as what we're talking about here with personal evolution?
Yeah, it was both a risk and a calling, and it was kind of like a fork in the road, because prior to spring in 2020, I'd never been interested in politics. Yeah. Therefore, none of my material was at all political. But, COVID happens and we see freedoms getting eroded, and that kind of woke me up to how entitled I had been to freedom. And this isn't a guarantee. This can be eroded if we allow it. So my call was to use my voice to essentially represent freedom and call out the corruption that I see trying to erode freedom. But the fork in the road was follow that call or play it safe, and don't talk about the safe things. Don't get political, because there's people would always tell me, not necessarily people I would want to take advice from, but people would tell me, don't get political, JP, you could divide your audience. And then, spring of 2020, our country's getting really divided, really drastically. So I did have the sense of risk was I had a level of fear of, I could lose some of my audience. I might, my subscribers go down and won't be able to fill up comedy shows, and it could be bad for business. And along with that fear, I also thought that would actually happen. But following the call of where my heart wanted to go, it's well, I'll do it. Even though I actually think it will be bad for business, I got to do it. And it turned out to actually be good for business. That wasn't planned. Yeah. But it was. And the fears that I had were actually based on imagination. They didn't come true because audience grew, and it was just opposite of what I thought. So, but yeah, the fear I had wasn't based on reality. It was what I imagined, and welcome to most of our fears. Yeah. But to me, what makes discomfort worth it, what makes it worth it to do something I'm afraid of, is when there's a call to it, a sense of purpose, a sense of inspiration. Then to me, that's discomfort that is worth doing my best to encounter, rather than hey, do you want to go run 200 miles over the course of a day? No, that sounds really uncomfortable.
No thanks, David Goggins.
Yeah.
No thanks.
I don't feel a sense of purpose or inspiration about it. And I'm also not going to get in a tiger's cage, even though that would be highly uncomfortable. But when there's a call, a sense of purpose, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, when the discomfort can lead to growth. And man, 2020 was fun, dude. That was fun. We had a lot of fun.
We did.
We started touring in the summer of 2020 when everything on the West Coast was nuts and places on the East Coast and in the South were starting to open up. And I just remember those crowds were so excited.
Yeah.
They were so excited. Do you ever think back to that? Because that was really we'll probably, hopefully never go through a period like that again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's for a lot of people, they would even tell us we were the first public thing they went to. They're out at a show and it's I probably imagined, dude, they're so excited to see the show. They were probably way more excited, hey, I'm out of the house,
right,
back in society, not being isolated, or at the very least, shamed if you're outside your house, right, doing this human connection thing. So yeah, it's kind of in a way, each town as it opened up, the people that would come out, I think they felt a sense of victory, we won our world back.
Yeah, I remember meeting people after the shows in Tampa, Florida, and a guy was saying how happy he was to just have the choice to have came to a show. Yeah. It was they were given the choice, whereas in Seattle, San Francisco, and other places that were locked down the whole summer and beyond, there was no option. There was no choice.
I would imagine it's just good people getting out of prison. Someone's falsely accused. They've been in prison however long they were, 3 months. or longer in other places. But now they're out of prison and they're getting to appreciate their freedom again.
Yeah. So freedom, dude. Freedom. Freedom is that's like your word.
I copyrighted the word. It is
yeah. You created the word. When you bleed, the blood drops out and it spells freedom.
Yeah.
Your DNA isn't a spiral. It's an FREEDOM.
Cold reptilian American blood spells freedom.
Yeah. So coming from the coaching space and the health and wellness space, what tie is there between the mission of freedom and kind of that like spiritual holistic space? I'll give you a little more context on that. So I go to a ton of music festivals, right? I'm very much in a spiritual community with all my friends and a lot of people that I hang out with, a lot of events that I go to. And there's a very common theme I've noticed within that community. You can call it the conscious community, the spiritual community, the community of people that like to do acid on Tuesdays, whatever. But the through line and the theme has been like a very strong want for free, a very strong support for individual freedom, a call for it, a recognition of the value and importance of individual freedom, more so than other communities that I've hung out with. And coming from that space, the coaching space, the health and wellness space, what do you think creates that tie so strongly between like that specific community and the call for freedom?
Yeah, so my interpretation of that, spiritually growth-minded person or community, to me, spiritual growth is synonymous with freedom. What spiritual growth is, or self-growth, you're freeing yourself from the limitations of your own ego. Or external freedom, you're freeing yourself from the limitations of other people's egos that are imposed on you. So, yeah, I think that's the way of the spirit. It's, God's way, it's expanding, whereas I think evil is constricting and control, and our ego's way, not that like those could lead to evil, but they're not necessarily evil, but the ego's way is constricting and control. The spirit, it's expand, surrender, go into the realm of the mysterious where you're growing and learning. Whereas control, it's all about stay familiar, stay controlled, and that's probably not going to make you happy. So yeah, I think to me, freedom is synonymous with spiritual growth. And if someone is truly into that, then freedom, of course, would be super important for them because they've kind of made it their mission to gain freedom from their own ego.
Yeah. And that's always been, that was championed by protesters in the 60s. The original hippies, they only wanted freedom. They didn't want, they fought for or protested for freedom from oppression, freedom from violence, freedom to do what you want, freedom to manipulate your own consciousness however you want.
Freedom to dance with their hips.
Yeah, freedom to have sex in the mud, which is still free. But there are so many different aspects of freedom today that seem to be getting called into question, right? The most obvious ones in the United States are the Second Amendment, right? The freedom to own a gun, which is written in to the documents that built this country. But there's also freedom of speech. A lot of people are freedom of speech absolutists. Would you consider yourself a free speech absolutist?
Yeah, I would, and I'll just give a quick thought on what that means to me. Yeah. Freedom of speech, it's to have freedom of speech, you have to allow all speech. Few exceptions, like not allowed to incite violence, like the shit that's in the Constitution, I can't improve on. I like that. Yeah. But freedom of speech is not freedom to say stuff you disagree with, or, well, you said something that sounds like hate speech, so we're not that free. wiser people than myself, they've always said you have to be able to tolerate all speech. People have to have the right to say hateful things. Doesn't mean you have to listen, doesn't mean you have to like it, doesn't mean you have to give them a platform. But they need to have, by the way, it's helpful when crappy people say crappy things, because then you get to know who they are.
Yes.
They're not a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right.
You identify them as wolf.
Right.
So that's being a free speech absolutist. That doesn't mean I like hate speech or like people being mean to each other, but I realize that has to be, that's part of freedom of speech, or else you have no freedom of speech.
Yeah.
The best you have is the freedom to say things that the current powers that be agree with.
And there's probably the best example of a country that does not have freedom of speech would be China. You know, where you can speak a sentence out loud that'll get you sent to the mines, or worse. So I agree with that 100%. But what's also been very strange to see over the past couple of years, specifically starting in 2020, although there was a lot of it that kind of began with Trump in 2016 when he got elected, is just freedom of thought. Which informs freedom of speech, because you can't go around knowing what people are thinking. But when I say freedom of thought, the distinction to me between freedom of thought and freedom of speech, this is tough actually, because I haven't actually fully thought of this yet. So here we go. Now you're about to get my freedom of thought. Freedom of speech, when you see somebody exercising their freedom of speech. You see them sharing an opinion, sharing a view. Freedom of thought, to me, is when somebody tries to begin a dialogue with somebody else or engage in a conversation about a certain topic without necessarily any, not necessarily with any goal or intention, but just simply to have a conversation or have a dialogue or pose a question. And I've seen people do those things online and in person and get torn to shreds in recent years. Just by asking a question, whether it's about the Middle East or about COVID, if you even begin to go down the path of wanting to have a conversation or asking for somebody else's opinion on something, you can be cast as a hateful fascist, whatever, you know. Choose
so
your
like the intimidation of cancel culture, or just outrage to shut down thoughts.
To stop somebody.
The dialogue.
To cease the dialogue before it even gets a chance to start, which creates this weird hesitancy now of people. And I have friends that will not even, they won't even chime in to a conversation about COVID or about the war or about, you know, any topics that are a little bit on edge, you know. So freedom of thought has, to me, been under a weird attack starting in 2016, but heightened to incredible heights in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, we have the thought police.
Yeah.
And we might make the mistake and think, oh, you know, the thought police are the censors, or we learned through the Twitter files, oh, the federal government was working with social media companies to shut down certain thoughts. And while all of that, excuse me, is real and it's a issue, let's not let it distract us and realize no, we are the people. We are, I think we've been tricked into being the thought police towards each other and towards ourselves. A friend who might say, oh, I'm not going to say what cool, they're thought policing themselves. Mm-hmm. You know, they're kind of beating themselves into submission so that someone else doesn't beat them in submission. Right. I will silence myself so nobody else has a chance to silence me. Right. So I think our founding fathers, they just kind of knowing their story. It teaches us a lesson that it takes courage to have freedom. So I think the thought police, especially the thought police, that's only a relationship that works if you consent to it. And you'll consent to it if you fear ramifications from the thought police, whether it's being an outcast or someone just shaming you, someone arguing with you, someone saying you're wrong, getting hostile. If you're afraid of those things, then you're consenting to, with obedience to the thought police. Cool, I'll censor me. Cool, I'll do that. But the founding fathers really taught us, like, you have to have a level of courage to have freedom. Just like we know, like, you have to have a certain level of courage to be yourself. And if you're insecure enough that you don't have the courage to be yourself, you are not a free person.
Right.
You are taking your own freedom due to an absence of courage. So we definitely have, like, thought police issues, and we also have lack of courage issues. And we also have so many people getting that courage and growing into it. It's past 3 years, so many people have grown way more than they had in the previous 30 years. It's really cool. So there's definitely, yes, we still need more courage. Some people need a lot. But on the whole, I see a lot of people figuring out the courage, the bravery they need, because we realize it's too dangerous not to have it.
Yep.
You know, cool. We're shut down our thoughts, shut down our speech. We know this, where this will go, and it's not into a beautiful, expressive, creative world.
You know, America is it's a really cool experiment. It's the freest country that's ever existed, right? Founded on all these principles of freedom. And yet there are still certain things that are so tightly controlled it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Right?
It's not the good part of the experiment.
No, there are a couple bad parts of the experiment that just aren't working out right now. What in your eyes are some of the things that you feel we should be entitled to we should have the pure freedom to do or have some things that currently we do not. You know, free speech being one of them. But what do you think of that?
Yeah, you know, the pure freedoms that I think we should have, I mean, I would just reference the Constitution, our Bill of Rights, like those clearly spelled out freedoms, I think cover all the bases pretty well. And like anything beyond that, like then you could start calling something freedom, but then you're infringing on other people's freedom. So that's not really freedom. You're getting a net loss of it. So yeah, I mean, the Constitution is just pretty damn important. The right to free speech, which, you know, that's right to free thinking is certainly a part of that. Right to gun ownership. I wish we didn't need that, but the founding fathers they had the wisdom to realize we know our intentions founding this country. We want freedom. That's what we stand for. These sons of bitches, if they weren't successful, they would have been killed.
Yeah.
So they knew there's worse things than death, and living with no freedom is one of those things. That's why they put their lives on the line for America to have freedom. But they knew, yes, one day we're not going to be running this country. Other people will. And then another generation, then another generation. And I think they were wise enough to know there's a part of the human condition that no one is immune to. This thirst, corrupt thirst for power in the easy way of getting it, rather than power coming from serving a higher mission. And that, basically takes the form of eventually like tyrannical offices, tyrannical people trying to control other people. So they knew, like, yeah, this is America, and everyone who's born in America isn't going to have this pure 1776 consciousness. Right. They're all going to be human beings. So I think that's why they had the Constitution exactly the way they did, because it covers the bases pretty well. And they were right. The human condition, it's still trying to infringe on all that.
Yeah. How about infringing on your personal freedom, your autonomy, physical autonomy. We'll get into psychedelics and drugs in a minute because that's the natural flow of this topic. But the right to do what you want with your own body. Steroids are illegal, right? A lot of psychedelics are Schedule I drugs, and it just seems like we really are being hypocritical with a lot of these rules and regulations that dictate what you can do with your body that belongs to you. And some make sense, maybe meth should be illegal because people are gonna bite each other's faces off. But where does freedom play for you in the realm of body autonomy and the right to do whatever you want with your own self, with your cells?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the body sovereignty is very important, and we've seen examples that I think are a clear violation of that. And for me, the clear ones, for example, is this pharmaceutical product, we're going to mandate that this goes into your body. It's a literal rape. Here's the needle. It's going to penetrate into you, whether you like it or not. So against your will. And then we ejaculate this thing that isn't from your body. It's from the body of this industry. We inject that into you. So to me, like, that is a form of rape. And obviously rape is a absolutely terrible thing. So that's why the sovereignty of our bodies is so important. We need freedom over it. And then as we extrapolate into the realm where I don't have a good answer, like, you look at drugs and like, okay, my opinion, of course, psychedelics should be legal for sure. Then you go a few more steps and it's like, well, meth, I mean, on principle, I like the idea that everyone should be able to do with their body what they want, whether I think it's a good idea or not. But then it's like, well, should it be illegal to make meth because it's such a, like, you're making something that's going to be harmful to people? Right. Like with LSD, for example, there's upsides and downsides. Downside, and I'm going to make this up, I don't know that it's true. Let's say a certain amount of brain cells die. But so let's say that's a net loss of 3 units of vitality, but there's a lot of potential for 10 units of vitality to be gained through self-awareness and healing. Whereas meth, I would just guess it's a net loss. Yeah. There's no upside, it's just all downside.
Yeah, you're not really coming to heartfelt conclusions on a pipe of meth.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So then I could, just get curious without knowing the answer of like, well, then because it's only downside, then should only downside substances be illegal to make because you're just like making poison for people to consume? But if it is made, even though they're not supposed to make it, and it actually is illegal to make, now that I think about it, but should it be illegal to do? Probably not. It should just be illegal to make. I don't know.
Right? It's not illegal to drink Drano.
Yeah.
But that'll kill you.
Yeah.
So I guess...
Might be a good cure for COVID, though.
Could be.
Drano?
Yeah. I think it clears out your lymphatic
Trump can do
sporadic system.
Some Drano with his Lysol research.
Yeah. So like, you've had psychedelic experiences in the past.
Not Drano, but other psychedelics.
Drano, which is a phenomenal psychedelic experience. That is medical advice. The experience of psychedelics has time and again proven, from clinical research trials to peer-reviewed studies to personal anecdotes, to assist way more than it detracts from expanding your consciousness, helping your mental health, and easing end-of-life situations for people with terminal illnesses. And yet it's still illegal. So it is an interesting conversation. It's an interesting thought experiment to think, like, if we're gonna legalize, say, for example, there was a bill passed to legalize plant medicines, all plants, because right now they're illegal still. I mean, weed finally is turning the corner, but not here in Texas. But what if there was a bill to legalize all plant-based medicines? You know, what would be the argument against legalizing cocaine also? You know, there's a country in South America, I forget where, Portugal, Peru?
I think it's Portugal.
Is that in South America or is that in Europe?
Nobody knows for sure.
No one knows.
It's suspected it's north of Canada, but we're going to find it eventually. But yeah, Portugal, everything's legal. Is that right?
Yeah. And you know, it would be a jarring change for sure because it's such a cultural shift. But in the long run, with proper education, it makes sense that things would even out to the point where if you grow up in a world where you're told this is legal, but it's terrible for you, we would have a safe integration of all of these substances into society. Alcohol kills more people than all psychedelics combined per year. In 1 month, more people die from alcohol than all the people that die from psychedelics in a decade, because people don't die from overdosing on psychedelics. You don't. Like you can jump off a bridge and think you're flying, but talking specifically about the blood poisoning aspect of it and the compound metabolizing in your body enough to kill you. So it's just a really strange thing to not have legal, and it feels like a freedom that we're really missing out on.
Yeah. So when I put on my tinfoil hat, which I never don't have on, you know, I consider like, okay, the government, and then like, they're the bad guys. They do some bad shit. They do some great stuff too. But you know, the right now our government, they're arguably, but also to me it's obvious, they're infringing on our freedom of speech. Certainly to a degree. We're not North Korea level by any stretch, but so we see them, okay, they're doing a constriction on freedom. Well, that's the same government that is saying psychedelics are illegal. So there's a common thread of, well, they're taking freedom. Like, what does speech and psychedelics have in common? Freedom or lack thereof. So it seems as though when people or a group want to rule over others, they want to have a sense of power. They get that through ruling over others. Part of their equation is, well, to the degree that we want to control them is the degree that we need to take their freedom. And they're, in my experience with psychedelics, there can be so much self-liberation, so much freedom, so much connection to our soul and God. And like, that's what freedom is, in my opinion. And when someone is just, say, very connected to their soul, their spirit, God, that's not a controllable person, because they have a direct connection with their higher source, and you automatically want to be in service to that, because nothing else is nearly as fulfilling and rewarding. But if they're connected to that, they don't need you as their higher source. Their obedience isn't going to be there because they're in service to God, spirit, higher self, all the things. So my tinfoil hat hypothesis is that, wanting to keep people disconnected from the divine, keep people controlled, is why psychedelic, I think it's the primary reason why they've been so illegal, so controlled. I don't think any rationalizations or narrative about, well, the dangers of it. It's like, alcohol kills way more people. Right. So I think it's all about control. Yeah.
Have you read The Immortality Key?
I haven't. I've heard of it. So I definitely.
Brian, oh God, I hope I get his name right. Morescu? God, sorry. I'll put it in the show notes. But he talks about that same thing, but mirrors what you're talking about, is specifically around government control. In The Immortality Key, he talks about the rise of the power of the church and the role that psychedelics played in early religion. Not to say that psychedelics were the religion.
Oh, Brian, I just listened to him on Rogan's podcast.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
It clicked.
Yes. So then you probably heard him talk a lot about this, his argument is not that psychedelics were religion, but there's empirical physical evidence that psychedelic ceremonies happened in ancient times, specifically in what's today Spain, used to be Greek owned land, and they used ergot in different drinks and for ceremonies and religious rites of passage type things. And then the church started to kind of bury that and ignore it and push it aside and paint psychedelics as this evil, demonic thing. And his theory is, and theories of other people, is that if there's a substance that can give you a direct connection to God, to source energy, and can expand your consciousness to the point where you're interacting with the world and you're understanding your role in the universe differently, then what's the point of a priest? Yeah,
no need for the middleman, no need for the gatekeepers, and that's very threatening.
It's threatening.
To the middlemen. And
but my opinion on that is like, they can live in harmony, and the priests can kind of take, and I wasn't raised religious, so I'm totally ignorant to so much of religious history and the nuances of religion. But I'm going to speak as if I know everything because it makes me feel better. Like if, in ancient times in northern Finland, there were shamans who kind of had that role of facilitator with the divine. And they would guide people through these psilocybin or Amanita muscaria fueled journeys to help connect them directly to God or to source. And that role could have continued with priesthood. And even in the Jewish religions, in ancient Jewish religions, they would have psychedelic ceremonies. But that all started getting kind of covered up and pushed to the side in favor of control.
Yeah, and I agree that the priests, the gatekeepers, they could have been in harmony with people having a direct connection with God, and they could they're such a great role to help facilitate that. Problem is, the devil masquerades as an angel in disguise. So a priest or whoever the religious figure is that wants to control and not let people have a direct connection with God, that's not a real priest. Mm-hmm. That's a dark priest. That's not someone who's truly fit for the role, in my opinion. And that's exaggerated by saying it's the devil masquerading as an angel in disguise. But when you have these angelic positions, a priest, a shaman, doesn't mean it's an angel inside that position. It's just an angelic position. Is it run by an ego, or is it run by someone's heart and soul truly being of service? So I would suspect that's why, because there weren't the priests there should have been, that's why they're like, well, we feel threatened and we want to, let's ban those psychedelics and the ergot and let's get rid of that.
Yeah.
Not let people have a direct connection with God.
Have you, in your experiences with psychedelics, have you ever had a chapter of your life where you've been regularly interacting with any specific medicines or compounds?
No, I've never been a regular person. For example, the last time I did use psilocybin, I came away with that beautiful experience, felt very beneficial to me. And I have this acute sense, I don't want to do that for a long time.
Yeah.
And the previous time I did psilocybin, I had the same thought. So it was, for me, at least a couple years before I had this sense of, I'm ready again. Cool. It'll be beneficial to do that again. Ayahuasca, psilocybin, LSD, there's been no regular use of those things for me. And I my personal just nature, when I think about using those things regularly, it like kind of makes me want to throw up. I just like, no.
Dude, yeah. There's so I sat in a ayahuasca ceremony for the first time earlier this year, and then I saw a guy from that ceremony a couple months later who said he had been going back almost every week since. And yeah, I was like kind of shocked by it. Like that, it seemed a little unhealthy, because you can, to me, these different medicines are so strong, they're so compelling in the experience that it can become almost addictive, and it can become kind of like you can develop a reliance on them if you're not careful,
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
And even if there's no chemical addictive properties, and most there aren't, I mean, gambling's highly addictive, and there's no chemical other than your own endogenous chemicals, which also come out with psychedelics. But so there's no chemical making you addicted to gambling. But for like, man, if you broke your leg and walk with crutches, cool. Crutches are there. They're there to support you. But then 6 months go by, you're still on the crutches. 3 years go by, you're still on the crutches. Now you're actually addicted to the crutches because you haven't strengthened your own leg. You've become dependent. So the addiction is based on dependence. I need this thing to make me feel connected and purposeful.
Yeah.
Rather than having that experience and then integrating to find that like, cool, like my work is to feel connected and purposeful when I'm doing everyday life, not just when I'm putting on my white fucking clothes and going to Doug the Molester's house for another ayahuasca.
Right, which is fun. And of course, the interaction that I had with that guy is like very, very rare. But it does happen more often when I talk to people about their experiences. It's something along the lines of what you just mentioned, which is like a very strong experience and then none for a while. And you wait until maybe it calls to you again, or you're entering a phase where you could use a different type of help or a perspective shift.
Yeah. Or you're working with like a trained therapist and they've got a well thought out protocol they advise you on, like awesome.
Yeah. Have there been, what type of psychedelic have you found to be the most growth inspiring in your experiences?
I would say for me, the most profound one, therefore the most growth inspiring, was ayahuasca. And I also have to heavily stress, we all know the setting, very important, like it's not just the substance. So I will stress.
Oh, you didn't just have a glass with dinner?
No, I wanted to.
Yeah.
But, didn't go well with a meatloaf.
We can get some from Dunkin' if you want. Dunkin' Aya.
So, I'll qualify my profound growth experience from ayahuasca is also indicative of the shaman, the setting, that was just as important as the actual substance itself. So, I just want to.
Yeah, that is important. I think a lot of people that are new to psychedelics, they don't, and rightly so, they don't fully understand what a deep experience should be and can be like. Because everything from the war on drugs to the portrayal in media and entertainment has kind of slanted what a typical like intentional experience is, which is set and setting, the people that you're with, the intention you put in, the integration process after, which is just as important, if not more important than the set and setting and who you're with during the experience. When was your ayahuasca experience?
So I've had 3 over the past 7 years, and one I would call was enjoyable and beneficial. The second one I would say was profound, and the third one was just like take it or leave it. Not bad, but also I didn't get much out of that based on what I perceive. So your question was when?
Yeah. So, but I would love to hear about each. If like, what were the biggest differences between the 3 different experiences that you had?
Yeah, I think part of it had to do with the amount that was drank.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And also, where I was at my psychology. I think the second one, I was just in a much more surrendered place, like really feeling the call. And then, the ceremonial experience, not to sound cliche, but it was just much deeper. My awareness of my human construct and who I think I am was not present. So I was really, deep, felt like just like a very divine, soulful realm, yet experiencing and learning things that were incredibly relevant to me personally that I could bring back. And I came back just with different perspectives and gratitude, sensitivity, understanding of myself and others.
So a real tangible change.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in who you are as a person, but like how would you define it, as kind of a perspective shift?
Yeah, certainly that a deep realization of the preciousness of life, because part of my journey was experiencing being dead and like out, and not like everything's black, but like dead as in I'm not in this body anymore. I'm what we earthlings would call dead. So my soul's not in the body anymore, and just like feeling oh, that was so fleeting, that was so precious, and that was so beautiful. And I can mistake my human stress and misery as like, this life isn't like as fucking awesome as it should, but it's like, no, it is the biggest gift to be incarnated into a human body. So there was just this passionate preciousness that I came away with. And then like, this sounds artsy fartsy. I might be making it up, but it's my perception. It's like there was like a energetic relaxing and cellular relaxing of just letting life more live through me rather than being in a cellular energetic resistance to it. So since then, life, work, business, money, it's been matching that flow that I experienced, the flow of energy during the ceremony.
I know a lot of people that would benefit from that, and most of them are living in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And
that would be, I mean, we've all thought about it. Like, should the government, Congress, Senate, president, should we require them to go through multiple ayahuasca ceremonies?
I mean, that's a whole joke that I do on stage.
That's probably why I think of it. Yeah.
I mean, it's what would that look like if we had more people in politics who have had these types of experiences?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would
totally upend the whole system. The system of backdoor lobbyists and fake super PACs owned by the Koch brothers and Soros money and all these like corrupt, intricate, webbed relationships would be picked apart by people who are conscious and like want to actually see positive change.
Yeah, I think the more people grow, and obviously a lot of that can be catalyzed by psychedelics, the more people realize money and control really don't matter.
Yeah, and it is mindfulness at the end of the day. Like psychedelics inspire mindfulness, but you can be mindful without taking 5 grams of mushrooms.
100%.
Yeah.
So, but if we inject or had all the politicians take 5 grams of mushrooms through some kind of protocol, you would have to fight really hard to not come out on the other side realizing that money and control what fuels most of what's wrong in Washington, D.C., without realizing money and control really doesn't matter. So I think we'd see a lot of those layers of skin being shed, and therefore these people in these positions of power looking to serve the people rather than having the people serve them and their agenda for more control, more money.
If you could prescribe psychedelics to Joe Biden, what would you prescribe and why?
Yes, I think ayahuasca.
You think he could handle ayahuasca?
No, I can't. He can't handle walking. So no, he can't handle ayahuasca.
But if he could,
but yeah,
sure.
I would just want him to sit in it, like 8-hour experience. Because I think he's got a lot to work through. So I would want that amount of time with them. And for me, ayahuasca, it's been more profound than psilocybin. So I think that would be the medicine I prescribe to Hunter's dad.
How about Trump?
It's a good question.
If
I want to say, and this isn't, I guess, technically a psychedelic, but it's kind of in the genre. And I'm also stealing part of your joke, but it's a great part of the joke. I think MDMA would be great.
Yeah. I consider MDMA a psychedelic. It doesn't have the same hallucinatory visuals, but yeah. Why MDMA?
Disclaimer on that, I would have to be there with Trump. Wouldn't it be cool to be on MDMA, just like cuddling with each other?
Dude, that'd be so fun.
Yeah,
a cuddle puddle with Trump. Yeah,
it'd be great. He seems soft and cuddly.
He'd be like, let's get some fries.
But I think why I would choose MDMA for Trump is, he obviously he has an ego, as we all do, and I think his ego's hilarious, and it's great. I wouldn't want it to change, but it just seems like, through his business life and then his presidential life, and also being crucified by the media and media getting a lot of the country to crucify him, I think he's probably become hardened and probably defended. And I think it would just be beautiful to have him experience just serene, loving, serotonin bath fueled love and connection. I could imagine that'd be medicinal for him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got people close to him that he's, great and connected with, but he's been through a lot. Yep. I think it could be good for him.
Yeah, I think so too.
And be awesome to have him share a little more of that with the country.
Yeah. I think MDMA would be the right move for Trump. I think that would, especially if it was in a therapeutic setting. Yeah. We both know the organization VETS that helps veterans with PTSD go on Ibogaine and DMT trips overseas to help with PTSD. And an MDMA assisted therapy for someone like Trump or even Biden or Putin, would help them work through some shit.
What if they were all on high doses of MDMA together?
Oh my God.
Biden and Trump
just figuring it out
around each other.
With their arms on each other's legs. Is this okay, brother? Is this okay? Yeah, that's fine, man. You're good. It's all good. That'd be amazing.
Putin's just laughing. He can't stop.
yeah, the whole time.
Do you know what psychedelic you wouldn't want to give Biden?
Which one I would not want to give Biden?
Yeah, kind of like the worst one for him in his condition.
Well, sometimes I feel like he's on bad LSD already. So I wouldn't want to make that worse with more LSD. Because I wouldn't want him to see more things than he's already probably seeing floating around.
Very considerate of you.
Yeah. But which psychedelic would be too dangerous? I feel like if he did DMT, he would enter the void and just stay there. Yeah.
Pretty damn close.
He's pretty close to the void. Yeah. What about you?
I was going to say ketamine, just because it's he's already so sedated.
Oh man, yeah, he'd be in that hole forever.
Yeah. But I think you had a better life-preserving answer for Biden. DMT probably would be the worst.
So we talk about freedoms being infringed on by the government, specifically psychedelics, but others as well. with the ultimate goal, as I think we both perceive it, being control. What is it? Do you think there is an end goal to that control? Do you think they've already accomplished the end goal, which is to be in ultimate power and have everybody exactly as they want us? And talking specifically about the government and government agencies. Do you think there's further that they want to go that you're seeing, or do you think we're kind of there and they're trying to maintain?
Yeah. So those who want to control us, do they have an end goal? Yes, I think they do. Has that been met? Yes, I think it has. And then the goalposts move. They form a new goal, because when you try to gratify yourself, your agenda through control, it's never enough. It's just like you can never have enough money to make yourself happy. So you make $1 million, like that's amazing. And also, oh, I still feel the same inside. So goalpost moves. Now we want to earn $10 million. Goalpost, it's $1 billion. Goalpost moves. It's just never enough when you're trying to satisfy yourself with something that's inherently unsatisfying. So I think they have their goals. They reach the goals, the goalposts move, and it would just keep moving until things are all, you just think of what's the most controlled, tyrannical story from history or current world, North Korea, things like that. And it's like, that's where it constricts to if we allow it. So yeah, that's my thought. Like, yeah, I think they have goals. I think they accomplish them. And then they have a new goal because the goalposts move, because they're still trying to satisfy themselves through the means of the ego. Yeah. Rather than letting themselves be satisfied by the means of the heart or spirit. And funny enough, those are the things that can actually fulfill you. Yeah. Yeah, man. In my opinion.
I agree. It's a tricky time, dude.
It is a very tricky time. But I would say a blessed time, because there's a lot of adversity in the world. Yeah. And the muscle can only be as strong as the weight is heavy. So challenging times for sure, but sacred times, because challenging times create strong people. If we rise to the occasion, as opposed to just letting the challenge sit on our chests like we're bench pressing without trying to lift it. Yep.
And we can help each other. We can help each other lift it, Fighting for freedom does not have to be an individual effort. A lot of people think, I know a lot of people are hesitant to really speak out for these types of freedoms because they just feel overwhelmed by opposition. Yeah. How would you encourage somebody to, speak out for these individual freedoms and continue fighting for them in the face of what seems like an insurmountable body?
Yeah, something I occasionally hear people say to me is like, JP, thank you for your work and your mission. Grateful you're doing that. And man, you must take a lot of courage, because it's dangerous to say what you think when you're not subscribed to the narrative. And yeah, maybe in a sense, but also the way I look at it is it's more dangerous not to. Like, I think self-responsibility is a superpower, and self-responsibility would tell us things could keep going in a more controlled, tyrannical direction, less freedom, if we allow it. And if they do go in that direction, it is our fault because we've allowed it. So once we realize we will only be controlled to the degree that we consent to it, then we start to realize, okay, it might be worth the discomfort of saying what I actually think and letting my actions follow through on that. Discomfort without purpose is suffering, but discomfort with purpose is growth. So identifying what is the actual purpose, why does it matter that I voice my voice? You can have a lot of answers, and just like one answer to consider is, because our freedoms could get massively eroded. Founding fathers knew there's something worse than death, and that's living a life without freedom. So that's where things could go, or in our lives, and even worse, the lives of our children and our grandchildren. We could put them in there if we allow it. So at the very least, like, protecting against that and preserving and standing for a beautiful, free way of life, that can be why it's worth it to go through the discomfort of saying what we actually think.
I love it, dude. I love it. And I love you.
I love you too.
Cool. We're going to go have sex now, everybody.
I am looking forward to it.
Dude, I love it. You inspire me to speak out in so many different ways. And ever since we started down that kind of similar path in 2020, stepping into a new space of using our voices for a different way, it's been great to watch your mission grow and to be on the freedom train with you.
And likewise, I love seeing you, your work, your mission grow. And also, happy 4-year anniversary. It was October 2019 when we first met.
Oh my God, that's right, in San Diego. Amazing. That's fun. That's cool. Well, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Love you, brother.
See you guys. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for rocking on this week's trip with JP Sears. Check out JP's tour dates and all of his video content at Awaken with JP across all socials. Make sure you check out legitgold.com and use promo code Brent for 15% off your order of She Legit. And check out hemplucid.com. Use promo code Pella for a discount on your order of CBD. I got tour dates and so much more coming out at brentpella.com. So y'all got homework to do now. And I hope y'all stay happy. I hope y'all stay free. And I'll see you next week. Peace.